Resolution 8 was a response to several of the Supreme Court decisions that said that the Crown, meaning the government, the federal and the provincial government, had a duty to consult with Aboriginal people whenever the Aboriginal rights that are enshrined in the Constitution would be affected, would or could be affected. So now that the Crown knows that it has to talk to Aboriginal people before projects go into their traditional areas, like, for instance, mining projects or hydroelectric projects, or even smaller projects that could affect how Aboriginal people exercise their rights, that the Crown needs to talk to them. So when something happens on the land that is used by Metis, now the Crown has to talk to us. So Resolution 8 came about in 2007, and it was a resolution introduced at the Annual General Assembly. There was a very good discussion and debate on the resolution, but in the end it was unanimously supported that the MMF would now be the main spokesperson. It always had been, but now it has Assembly complete unanimous Assembly support, that the MMF would be the spokesperson for the Métis when it comes to Métis rights. And it was specifically discussed that on the duty to consult, that when the Crown, meaning the province or the federal government, wants to talk to the Métis about rights being affected, that the Home Office is the first point of contact. As we all know, the MMF is a Métis government here in Manitoba, and it has different layers of government, just like every other government has. We have our Provincial Board of Directors, we have our Home Office, we have regional offices, of course, and we have locals. And the processes within the Métis government allows us to have better conversations between us and the regions, between the regions and the locals, and everything in between. We felt, and the people felt, that it wasn't appropriate that perhaps a Crown department or agency spoke directly to a local who didn't have the capacity for environmental assessment, the capacity for understanding biological effects, all these scientific effects that could happen in an area with a major project, say affecting a body of water or an area of land. And it was felt that it was necessary, and even the locals felt that it was necessary. And it helps on all sides. It helps us within our own internal structures, but it also gives the Crown one point of contact, which to me would be a very positive thing, where you don't have to run around and find 50 or 60 or 100 different communities to talk to, when you can just go and talk to one person, talk to one department within the MMF, and then the MMF does that work with the Crown and with the Métis citizens. So it's fairly simple, but it's becoming a really positive foothold in how the Métis Nation is moving forward with, quite frankly, in self-governance. What the MMF did on the process of going out to the people and explaining the ideas to them and asking the questions, how do you want to be consulted? This is what we have with Resolution 8, and this is the basic framework of what's going to be done. And when you are being consulted, what do you see as being important? And so when the first cut at the framework was being put together, the first phase was settled on as being the notice and providing of information. That's a fairly fundamental phase, because you have projects that'll be happening in your backyard, and the worst thing that could happen with a relationship on the consultation side is to have people find out about it after the project's already starting. Notice is important. This is what we're doing. This is what we plan to do, and we want to talk to you about it. Here's the information about the project. We're going to be digging a mine here, and it's going to affect this size of land, and it's going to affect these waterways, and we want to engage with you. Now, the phase 2 is the funding and capacity. What has been happening in other jurisdictions across the country is that proponents and the Crown have been providing funding and capacity. Capacity meaning that there would be skills brought in, but they would be looked at specifically from the Métis perspective and not necessarily from the proponent's perspective. The proponent has their own experts that they can engage. But in order for the Métis Nation to be consulted or to engage with the proponent properly, there would need to be a significant understanding. There needs to be a fair and level playing field so that the information that the Crown has or that the proponent has, that the Métis Nation has access to the same information and in an unbiased way that is presented properly and in the interests of the Métis people. The proponent may say, well, this mine won't affect the wildlife in the area. Trust us, it won't affect the wildlife. Well, you know, after a couple hundred years of not having really good faith in what the Crown or what proponents say, the Métis Nation I think, has the right to be a little skeptical of things like that, and that's why we need that capacity and funding. So that when the third phase, the actual consultation or the engagement, the Crown has the duty of the consultation, but a good business practice for the proponent would be to be a major part of that engagement. And so when that happens, when there is a good understanding from all sides of what that project is going to be and how there's going to be an effect on, say, the wildlife or the waterways, that when everybody sits down at a table and there is the discussion, there is the engagement and the consultation, that everybody is educated about what will happen. The reason why the duty to consult lies with the Crown is because it's the Crown that can then do the enforcement. The proponents may see the good business practices of consulting with Métis people, but some may not. So it's up to the Crown then to say, look, this is the law of the country now. These people are living on this land and they have constitutional rights, so you need to talk to them. We need to talk to them. And if we talk to them together, then it's only going to have a more positive outcome. But going to the fourth phase, which is the accommodation and partnership phase, you know, that is one of the things that the Supreme Court said, is that that the Crown has the duty to consult and potentially accommodate. So the idea of accommodation is, look, your rights are going to be affected. We're either going to make sure that the rights are not affected, or there may be a different kind of accommodation. So let's say there's going to be a mine that's put into the ground. I keep using the mining analogy, but so it's pretty hard not to affect the rights, because there's going to be an area where there's going to be some big effects on it. So what are some accommodations? Well, the accommodations could be things like jobs and training. There's a absolutely endless idea of how the accommodation could happen, but the accommodation needs to come out of the consultation. So what do the Métis people feel is happening? How do they feel that it can be rectified? And then the partnership needs to be, again, at a level of a partnership, not just people being told what to do or to stay out of this area, but that there is a real spirit of partnership so that the people feel involved in what's going on, and so that the people are still getting the benefit from the land that they've always exercised their rights on. You can develop partners, you can develop a workforce, you can get the traditional knowledge that the Métis people have, who are actually living out in the area that's looking to be developed. The idea that the Métis will put roadblocks in the way of any kind of development, no matter what it is, I think is completely false. The idea of bringing economic development to the people is always welcome, as long as it's done cooperatively and with far-sightedness. And Resolution 8 sets out a different way that the Métis want to be consulted. It's not better, it's not worse, it's different, because the Métis have organized themselves differently. They are governing themselves differently than other Aboriginal people in Canada and in Manitoba. The idea is more Métis specific, and the reason it is because it was the Métis who developed it. It was the Métis who, moved it along, who kept pushing forward the idea that Resolution 8 is the way that we want to be consulted. And I think we have one of the best models of consultation, because there are safeguards in place. There's not going to be anyone taken advantage of. So the idea that we are doing this together, I think, is a really, really important concept. Yeah, one of the things about the MMF Home Office being the main contact is that it's easier for industry, it's easier for the province, and it's easier for the federal government to say, look, we know there's a project coming, who do we call? Well, for the Métis, we phone the MMF Home Office. The Home Office then takes all the information that they can get, and then the 4 phases start kicking in. At the same time, the Home Office needs to have that really good link with the regions. They need to have that really good link with the local people. There's a reason why Resolution 8 was built the way it was. First of all, to do the protection, but then the flip side of that is that the communication needs to be there so that the people feel safe in giving over the authority of their being consulted on their rights to happen at the Home Office. This Resolution 8 is going to help distinguish us as being a distinct people, a distinct nation, and one that has the wherewithal to stand up and say, look, this is who we are, this is how we organize ourselves, and we want to work with you. But let's find a way to do it together, because it is going to be the thing that moves the Métis Nation forward in the next decades to come for all of our future generations. So it's a game changer for the Métis and their place in Manitoba and in Canada.